What y'all listening to?
Limelight Highlight Podcast.
And we are back again with another episode to start the week off on a positive note. It's the Limelight Highlight Podcast, the podcast that highlights all good things and brings them into the limelight for you guys to listen to, because if we're being honest, there is a ton of negative out there. So let's focus more on a little bit of the positive. As always, I'm your host, Jonathan Rosario, and I actually want to start the podcast off on some positive. I am getting a lot of positive feedback from the podcast every week, more and more. So keep telling your friends, keep telling your family, keep telling your loved ones, keep sharing all the good news, because I got good news to share. And on top of that, I'm getting actually a lot of tags and stuff like that in good posts on Instagram and on Facebook and stuff like that. One from our listener, J. Pierre, she actually tagged me in this thing, I think a couple days ago, and it's about a guy named Robert F. Smith. I don't know if you guys know who Robert F. Smith is, but he is, just a little background for you guys who don't know who he is. He's the founder and CEO of Vista Equity Partners, and is considered one of the wealthiest black entrepreneurs today. And the thing she tagged me in was pretty much he was an honorary speaker for the Morehouse commencement speaker for the graduation class of 2019 for the a bunch of graduating college seniors. And he actually paid it forward, something that I always end the podcast in saying, pay it forward. He paid nearly 400 graduating seniors student debt for the class of 2019. Now he's a billionaire, so I think the whole total came up to about $40 million, which to a billionaire I don't even know. I can't fathom that much money to see if it's actually worth anything. Of course it's worth something. I mean, if it hurt his pocket or not, whatever the case is, that's a lot of money. And, you're probably like, well, he's a billionaire, he could probably do that. But it's just the thought that counts. 400 people's lives he changed by just paying their student debt. And if we're being honest, the amount of student debt in this country is so ridiculous. You can file for bankruptcy. That thing will follow you to your grave. It doesn't matter. You have to pay that thing back. And the interest on there, it's just such a skewed little dirty business the government has, that they allow these federal student loans and all this stuff. That is a conversation for another day. But I'm glad to hear that somebody out there is paying it forward. And I mean, there's been tons. I'm pretty sure this wasn't the first time he's done it, but there's other celebrities I remember in the past, and they have just paid a bunch of people's student loans off and stuff like that. So I just think that's a great thing that we need to highlight more of. Grants. People need to take opportunity for higher education and not have to be in debt for the rest of their lives. So shout out to Robert F. Smith for doing that good deed. I thought that was amazing. Now, the second topic I actually wanted to talk on today is about homelessness. We speak a lot about the Block Gives Back and all the things that they're doing for their community, and basically encompassing everything that has to do with this podcast, or everything that this podcast stands for, is taking action, helping promote positivity and, doing things for the community. Well, I live in San Diego, and there are a ton of homeless people here. Granted, the weather's usually always nice. It doesn't get that cold. And people are, normally nicer out here than they are on the East Coast. But, so you got to imagine the amount of homeless people that kind of track themselves all the way over here. It's a lot. And if we just go a little further up north, about 2 hours, you get to LA. And if you think San Diego has a lot of homeless people, LA is the second biggest city in the country, and they have an egregious amount of homeless people. There's actually a place called Skid Row, and our listener and actually previous guest of the podcast, Alexis Rodriguez, aka A-Rod McNasty, she actually put me onto this. She tagged the page in this video, and it's about this lady named Shirley Raines. She's a 51 mother of 6. She lives in Long Beach, and she actually won a prestigious award from the iconic Bronner Bros beauty show. I didn't know what the Bronner Bros were, so I had to look them up, and they're apparently the largest private African-American business for hair and skincare. They produce like products in the U.S., which I thought was super cool. And the reason she won that award is because, so she started feeding the homeless and the needy in her community and realized there were a ton of women there lacking, basic hygiene and beauty supplies. And a lot of them kind of came up to her and complimented her. Oh, your hair smells, or your hair looks cool, because she has like a bunch of different color hair. Your makeup is beautiful, and you smell really good. So one thing that she kind of, I guess what stood out to her was a lot of these women are still women. We look at them as homeless people, or we look at them as people who fell on hard times, and you just want to help them out in any little way you can, which is basic necessities that we all need to live, right? You want to feed them, you want to clothe, give them clothes, give them a little housing. All that stuff is great. But the reality of it is that these chicks, these women are, she said this quote, and I had to write it down because I thought it was something extremely important, and I thought that stood out like crazy. And she said, they want to look in the mirror and see something other than their circumstances. And if you got to think, man, a lot of people, and she would say it in this video, she says, a lot of people are, some of them have PhDs. Some of them are just fall on hard times. They lost their family. Some of them are addicted to drugs, which is a huge problem in the U.S. right now. And Skid Row is just this, I don't know if you guys have ever heard the term tent city, but that's basically what it is. Tent city is just people living in tents and boxes under bridges, or they take a huge chunk of area and they all live there. I wouldn't say harmoniously, because let's face it, they're all homeless and it's not the greatest of conditions. But what she did was, seeing that, she founded this thing called the Beauty to the Streets. It's an Instagram, and she's got like a ton of followers. But she has a group of people who come and they volunteer and help her. And they're a group of Long Beach moms, followers who've actually gotten involved, and people who actually escaped homelessness themselves. And there's actually even a charity-focused biker club called Fighters for the World, and they pretty much got involved to provide security for when they set up and everything like that. So you got to think, well, for one, nobody really wants to mess with bikers, and two, the fact that they're setting up these little, security for the area for the people to come in, and they set up shop. So she has like a bunch of beauty supplies. She washes all their hair. She actually supplies them with little tents so they can actually shower. I guess she has like these portable little, they're kind of like water bladders. So and they have hoses on them so they can shower and get, a good, nice, clean shower. And she dyes their hair and does some of their makeup. And the look on these women in this video, I've shared the video before. I'll share it again after this podcast releases, so you guys can, if you guys are interested, look up on the Limelight Highlight podcast, or even go to Instagram and follow Beauty to the Streets. It's crazy the amount of glowing these women have from just the simple things that we, as people who aren't in the, I wouldn't say we're super well off, but we got roofs over our heads. We're not trying to figure out when our next meal is going to come. The majority of us, for those who may have those problems, I hope you guys find outlets out there there's tons of them out there to help homeless people. And I hope you guys take advantage if you are in that position, or know somebody who is in that position. Direct them to those places where they can go, So I just thought this was a really good story, because the amount of homelessness in, the richest country in the world, it's crazy. It's so crazy. A lot of those people are actually homeless because they couldn't pay their medical bills or couldn't afford certain things of that nature. And it's really sad, especially, I don't want to get all political and stuff like that, whatever your political stances or the thoughts you have on healthcare and stuff like that. It's just, there are so many people that are affected, and so a lot of them, not everybody can take it the same way you can. I mean, if you're kind of that person who doesn't think that it applies to them. All right, I don't want to get too in depth into that and all that stuff. I really wanted to highlight this lady. So once again, her name is Shirley Raines. She's 51. Skid Row is a place in LA. I'm sure, when I mentioned it before, which is full of homeless people, and she just goes there with a group of individuals who are volunteering their time and trying to make these people's lives a little bit better, So once again, if there's anything that encompasses what this podcast stands for, it's everything that lady's doing, because a lot of people take for granted all the, like I said before, we take for granted a lot of the stuff that we have available to us. So shout out to her. Shout out to all those other organizations that are actually doing stuff out there, like feeding the homeless. Shout out to the Block Gives Back. They do a ton of stuff throughout the year. And like I said before, man, common unity, community. That's what we live. That's where we are. Everybody needs to pitch in, or they should pitch in. Have a little compassion, and whoever's on hard times, figure out how you can help them out. That's all I really have for this week's podcast. Just quick 2 stories, 2 huge problems that I think need a lot of attention, which are student debt. You can actually become homeless because you can't even afford the damn bills. Especially student debt that's constantly having crazy interest rates, and homelessness, from a plethora of things that happen to people who end up homeless, whether it's healthcare bills, whether it's being addicted to opioids or drugs that they didn't intend to be addicted to, or falling on hard times, or running away from a terrible situation. Whatever the case is, I hope all of those people can find an outlet, or if you know any of those people, once again, point them in the right direction, and hopefully we can make the world just a little bit better by providing those outlets for them. That's all I got for you guys. If you enjoyed this podcast, once again, give it a like, subscribe, share, follow, tell your family, tell your friends. As I said in the beginning, we got a lot more people constantly subscribing. We got a lot of people sharing a lot of good stories. So the more you share, the more I want to give out, and give you guys a shout out for those. So once again, thank you to J. Pierre. Thank you to A-Rod McNasty for both those stories this week. If you want to write me directly, you can email me at limelight@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Limelight Highlight. And if you want to follow me, me personally, myself, my podcast, my Instagram is JohnRio215. Other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful week, positive week. Do something good. Go help somebody and point them in the right direction of life, period. I'm going to stop rambling. And last but not least, be humble, be helpful, pay it forward, and be the best you can be. This is the Limelight Highlight Podcast, and I see you guys next week. Thanks for listening.